Welcome everybody, Souldin of the Grin Brothers here, and it's time for another episode of Tea Time. And this is a bit of a classical tea time, I guess that's a way to call it, because the past few tea times have been all different kinds. There was the E3 2016 Tea Time Talks, the return of Kickoff with trying to promote Fable Fortunes Kickstarter, which has actually, by the way, succeeded, albeit not through the Kickstarter. A third-party publisher, Mediatonic, I believe, stepped in to help publish the game. In either case, Fable Fortune is going to be made. And the one before that was like our Tea Time anniversary. So this is the return of classic Tea Times. Ineptly structured and organised with very little prep. Just like tiny little notes on a tiny little bit of paper. In any case, today's tea is Sencha tea. It's a green leaf tea that I'm having without milk, and just reading off the back, originally from Japan, this tea is picked in early spring and the leaves are steamed and rolled to keep their colour and capture its verdant, herb-like taste. Pale gold, when brewed lightly, is bursting with natural antioxidants. I'm not sure I'd describe that as pale gold, more like insanely dark gold. Maybe I didn't brew it lightly enough. So then, for the topic of today's tea time, I do have a clear focus for the topic, but sorry, I'm just trying to clear the desk at the same time, which is a terrible thing to try and do whilst trying to have a discussion. I do have a clear topic, but not really so much a very clear-cut point to make with it, though I do obviously have some views to express. In any case, this is going back all the way to E3. There was a E3 interview involving one Riza Tabata, the assistant producer on Paper Mario Color Splash, and various comments she made about Paper Mario as a series, this latest installment of Paper Mario, and also Mario RPG series in general. So, I've shall dub this Tea Time episode Mario RPG Ramifications. Not sure if that's the most fitting title, but I just kind of like the way RPG Ramifications kind of just rolled off the tongue for me. In any case, Rita Tabat had an interview with various people. The one I watched was through Game Explain, and she commented on the situation concerning the Paper Mario series. And one of the key comments she made in regards to it, as to why Paper Mario Color Splash, and perhaps even why Paper Mario Sticker Star before it, were lighter on their RPG elements, is that the Mario & Luigi RPG series already exists. And they didn't feel the need to have two Mario RPG series going at the same time. As such, they've decided to become more experimental with the Paper Mario series, and take it away from its RPG roots, focusing instead on puzzle solving, humour, the characters, and trying to think of new and interesting ideas involving the paper mechanic, as well as a sort of way of representing it in a sort of 2D form. Much like how with Sticker Star they came up with the idea of stickers, and with Color Splash they've come up with the idea of cards. Paint is actually not the main feature when in regards to the paper mechanic, although paint is, the key theme, but it's actually the cards they bring up when they mention the paper aspect. Though I suppose you can paint cards, you can paint paper, so you can paint a lot of things. What can't you paint? Oil? You can't paint oil, I don't think. Well, no, was I oil? You can... In any case, that's going completely off topic. Well, sort of off topic. But the point she made was basically that there doesn't need to be two Mario RPG series. And I've got to admit, I kind of understand her point. Like, now people will bring up how it's perfectly okay for Nintendo to have more than one RPG series. It'd be weird, it'd be weird to say that, because this RPG series exists, this RPG series shouldn't. However, when it comes to, talking about the other RPG series, you got Mario & Luigi and you got Paper Mario, and they're both utilising the same IP. They're both spin-offs of the same IP. being done in an RPG manner. Slightly different RPG manners, but with a lot of shared themes, such as the ability to sort of time your button presses, and obviously being set in the Mario universe and utilising various Mario characters. And both are funny, albeit in different ways. And but when it comes to the other RPG series Nintendo have, such as Pokemon or Fossil Fighters, Golden Sun, Mother series, what was it? The Magical series. All these series are utilising different IPs. In the majority of those cases, well, actually all of those cases, it's using original IPs as the basis for these RPG series. The Paper Mario and Mario Luigi series, respectively, are both spin-offs. They're spin-offs which are RPG series, and they're both coming from the exact same source. So I can understand why someone looking at it might see it a bit pointless to have two series which are spin-offs of the same series be of the same sort of genre and have similar ideas and mechanics to them. Of course, there are very obvious subtle. I'm not sure obvious subtle is a line that makes sense, but obvious sort of points where they do differ and subtle points where they differ in terms of how they work, but the key mechanics are kind of shared between them, and the key sort of points are shared between them. You know, they are both RPG series based off Mario, they're both turn-based, they both have an active time battle system, they're both quite focused on their humour, and they're both pretty decent series, although I personally much prefer the Paper Mario series myself. But I've heard someone sort of try to raise a counter-argument in regards to 2D platformers as an argument, saying, in that case, why is there a Mario 2D platformer, a Kirby 2D platformer, a Yoshi 2D platformer, and a Donkey Kong 2D platformer? And honestly, I think the main point is for Donkey Kong and Kirby, they've gone to the point where they are pretty much separate from the Mario universe. In Yoshi, I can understand not using that as much of an argument. I do find it a bit strange how Yoshi still keeps getting made games, in conjunction with the Mario 2D platformers. Like, you'd think they'd focus on one or the other. Yoshi's never gone into a 3D environment, so maybe it would be focus Mario on the 3D or the 3D Land, 3D World-esque sort of 2D to 3D conversion type games, whereas you could leave Yoshi with the 2D gameplay. Of course, again, they are different. There's lots of nuances that are different. But in terms of just looking at the broader theme, they're both derived from the same sort of IP, although the Yoshi, some may argue, is enough to stand on its own. I personally don't think that Yoshi stands as its own IP because they attach it too much to the Mario IP. Kamek, Bowser Jr. or Bowser himself, Mario or a baby version of him, they're all sort of like pop up and they're kind of too closely linked together, really. In any case, they are, all different IPs effectively being done as 2D platforms. They're not, again, being derived from the same source. So again, I can understand the issue with having two Mario RPGs. Like, if you're going to make a spin-off, why make a spin-off of the same genre of which you've already made before? And this isn't a case of the sports games where they make a Mario Tennis and a Mario Golf and such, because they'll end up playing completely differently, because tennis and golf are such different sports. The key mechanic points are shared between the Paper Mario and Mario Luigi RPG series. Of course, again, they do their differences, but I'm kind of just reiterating all my points here. At the same time, though, whilst I can understand their point, I also begin to question, although this is more of a looking back on the situation, question the existence of Mario Luigi then. For starters, the Paper Mario series came before it, and in Japan it's known as Mario Story. It was originally going to be Mario RPG 2, but the Paper Mario series came before it, and then we had the Mario Luigi series. And on that note, why did the Mario Luigi series get started if there was already a Mario RPG series in place? With Paper Mario being the, original IP series, shouldn't that be the one to remain being the IP series, given that Mario and Luigi came afterwards? And further on that point, if it's an issue of deriving from the same IP, as in there being two Mario RPGs, wouldn't it just be the wiser option to then change one of them to a different IP? In my preference, it would be altering the Mario and Luigi RPG series into utilising a different IP henceforth. After all, going through Alpha Dream's sort of portfolio, which isn't a very big portfolio, mind you, Alpha Dream being the developers of the Mario and Luigi games, one of their original games, which came out before Mario and Luigi, plays almost identically to the Mario and Luigi in terms of how the mechanics work and such. And it's called Tomato Adventure, starring a main character called Demille. And it's got a very wacky plot, wacky items, and all these sort of cool sort of themes, and it plays in a turn-based manner similar to the Mario and Luigi games. And yeah, it never came out in Japan, and when they did make further games of that particular gameplay style, they became the Mario and Luigi series, despite how it was already its own original unique IP. Which kind of really strikes me as odd then, that now Paper Mario is having to change because the Mario and Luigi series exists, despite how the Mario and Luigi series, in a sense, was never originally the Mario and Luigi series. Another issue I have is that I kind of question why they utilised the Mario and Luigi IP when they look to actually utilise another IP. Maybe this was something that Nintendo said they should do, but I always find it odd that Mario and Luigi were the characters chosen. Around the time Alpha Dream sort of like were working on these sort of GBA games, Ice Climbers had just come back into popularity thanks to Sakurai adding them into Smash Bros. Melee. Although I'm not sure on this if these times do correlate perfectly, but given that the Mario and Luigi series emphasised teamwork in their sort of mechanics and emphasised only focusing on the two characters of Mario and Luigi, occasional extras such as the Baby Mario and Baby Luigi or Paper Mario, why didn't they use the Ice Climbers? I mean, sure, they don't have quite as much of a fleshed out world, but the Mario and Luigi series originally did quite a bit in terms of fleshing out different ideas for the worlds. I'm not sure about the very original game, but the Shroobs were certainly something that was never in any Mario and Luigi game prior to it, so they could have done the same thing with Ice Climbers if they decided to focus on them. There are other IPs they could have used. Shin Onigashima, possibly. You know, Hikari and Dombe, that's a tag team that could have worked well in a duo-focused turn-based RPG. But again, my preference would have been to focus on making Tomato Adventure into a big, long-standing IP, instead of taking on the Mario and Luigi identity, which has in turn started to kill off Paper Mario's own sense of identity as it strives to exist, but at the same time try to be different. Paper Mario's recent entries haven't been well received critically. You know, fan reception hasn't been very positive to Color Splash or Sticker Star. In fact, I think the hatred for Color Splash is starting to go beyond Metroid Prime Federation Force, which is quite impressive. As much as I like Federation Force in terms of what I've seen so far, I'm not going to deny that, you know, it's not made many fans happy. But Paper Mario Color Splash seems to have ticked off people even more. But the new direction they seem to be trying to strive for with the Paper Mario series hasn't seemed to work so far, which leads me to wonder if Intelligent Systems feels that there's not much point in Paper Mario remaining as an RPG series, then why are they still continuing trying to utilise the Paper Mario IP? As in, like, Paper Mario is kind of connected into being an RPG series. That is what it is, an RPG series. The first two games were RPGs, and the third game had a ton of RPG elements. Yet it seems they keep trying to pull it back from it with Sticker Star and Color Splash. And at that point, it kind of becomes a case of whilst it is Paper Mario, it's starting to lose the identity of Paper Mario. Like, it's lost the gameplay and the spirit of the Paper Mario series as a result of this departure from the RPG elements. So it leads me to wonder if Intelligent Systems aren't going to bother making the Paper Mario games in the form of Paper Mario games, which I'm not sure the case of changing up the gameplay to the point where it feels like a spin-off of a spin-off is the right direction. Why don't they focus on some of their other IPs instead? There's nothing saying they have to make a Paper Mario game. There's, after all, plenty of Mario spin-off games already in existence, and Intelligent Systems have plenty of IPs. If they want to focus on a card-based game, why don't they make a new Card Hero game? Maybe release it outside of Japan for once. I think with the Wii U gamepad, it would have been really cool to have a trading card game focused game on the Wii U gamepad. Paper Mario Color Splash isn't quite hitting that trading card game feel to it. I was going to say vibe, and then I tried to say theme. I'm not even sure what I was trying to say in the end. And as people may know, I'm a huge fan of Puzzle League, particularly Penalty Pon. Why not bring that to the Wii U? It's got a great touchpad which can be used. I'd even be okay with it being on 3DS. It's another series that they could have actually sort of utilised instead of thinking, we need to make a new Paper Mario game, but we can't make it as a Paper Mario game. Advance Wars. People have been asking for Advance Wars because it's perfect. You know, we haven't had one since the DS, and the 3DS and Wii U are perfect systems for it. The touchscreen makes it brilliant to control them. I was going to sort of, the other IPs they've got are like Fire Emblem and Pushmo, but it's like those two have well covered recently. Those have been pretty well covered. But yeah, Intelligent Systems have plenty of IPs they could decide to focus on if they don't plan on focusing on Paper Mario as a Paper Mario game. Instead of trying to almost tarnish the reputation of the series by trying all these ideas which just haven't been able to stick or work. I'm not going to say against trying to experiment. I encourage, trying to experiment from time to time, but there's a point where it's like, if you're experimenting so much with their IP, whether it's even really that IP anymore. There's a case of why an experimentation with an IP is called a spin-off, rather than being considered as the main IP itself. And Paper Mario already exists as a spin-off, so it's just weird to try and see of it as a spin-off of a spin-off for these layer entries which have distanced itself from the gameplay styles and thematics of the games. I'm going to have some of my tea, actually. It's hot weather, and I'm constantly suffering from headaches as of late. Okay, so this is Sencha tea without milk. Having a try. Not a big fan. Maybe I should brew it a little bit lighter next time. Quite bitter taste. The aftertaste doesn't seem to last very long with it. It seems to dull down quite quickly, but it's quite sharp. Then just sort of like stays for like 5 or 10 seconds and then just vanishes. Kind of odd. It's bearable, but I'm not a big fan of it. Maybe I should try it with milk at some point or brew it lighter. It does seem to suggest that it's supposed to be brewed lightly in particular to get that golden, sort of light golden colour. In any case, another issue with the direction of the Paper Mario series and the comments that have been made, Risa Tabata mentioned in her interview that they're going to be focusing on characters. And there's not a whole lot of that in Paper Mario Color Splash at this point in time. And from what I've heard of Sticker Star, there wasn't a lot of character in that. Now, I've heard them sort of like the intelligent system explanation be that the Toads do have unique personalities, just not unique sort of character designs. But that's kind of a problem in itself. It's just Toads. It's not a range of characters, and species, and being able to see the Mushroom universe, the Mario universe, in all of its different elements. It's just more Toads. We're understanding more of the Toads, but not of these other creatures and races that populate the Mario universe. And design also helps quite a bit in trying to present the world and the characters and trying to give a good impression. It helps make them more memorable as to who they are. You remember a funny scene or a funny comment they make without a unique design, and you can even remember their personality and hijinks they get up to, but it's going to be hard to obviously find them in a sea of sort of crowded sea, or trying to remember them as much if you haven't got a good visual memory to sort of match them up with, to make them distinctive from the rest. So I do find issue with that sort of comment that they're going to focus on characters when I've yet to see evidence of that so far. In any case, there's not a ending point really for it. This is just my thoughts and opinions. I understand why they wouldn't want to have two Mario RPG series, two Mario RPG spin-offs existing at the same time. And although like certain other series I can see existing, like there being various 2D platformers of using Nintendo characters, I can understand as existing because they utilize different characters in turn. But the Mario RPG series are basing it off the same IP. I can understand the sort of reasoning behind that. What I can't understand is why it's Paper Mario who is having to be sacrificed, as it were, in having to abandon its identity in favour of Mario and Luigi RPG series, which kind of took on the Mario and Luigi RPG sort of identity after being originally Tomorrow Adventure. And I also don't understand why Intelligent Systems feels they need to continue making Paper Mario games if they're going to make Paper Mario games that aren't really Paper Mario games, because they lose the key elements to which people define as a Paper Mario game. And I guess the other point to bring up is the case of handhelds versus consoles. Despite what some may believe, not all Nintendo owners own both the handheld and the console versions of a game, of this Nintendo's generation system. Some people will own only a Wii U for their Nintendo system, some people will own only a 3DS. And the difference with Mario & Luigi and Paper Mario is that Paper Mario originally was a console-focused series, whereas the Mario & Luigi series was a handheld-focused series. At that point, there was an explanation as to why these two were existing at the same time. Paper Mario games weren't coming out on the handheld, and Mario & Luigi games weren't coming out on the consoles. In the case of Paper Mario abandoning its RPG identity, that raises the question of, well, sure, it's making itself distinct from the Mario and Luigi RPG series, but the Mario and Luigi RPG series, at least their new installments, aren't available on the console, aren't available on the Wii U. So people who are Wii U gamers, who want a Mario-based RPG, aren't getting that because it's not available for them. If the Mario and Luigi series were to start becoming available for the Wii U console as well, then I could perfectly understand, even more so than... I mean, I can understand, but I can fully accept the reasoning at that point, but as it stands, there's just so many sort of like oddities with the statement and with the decision to sort of go with this direction with Paper Mario and to continue making a Paper Mario despite the change in direction with it. Well, that's a lot longer than I wanted. I was hoping to keep this under 20 minutes, and it's like gone past 22 now. Gonna take some sip of my tea because my throat's dry. I'll probably off camera, off audio, try this with milk. In any case, those are my thoughts on the Mario & Luigi and Paper Mario current situation, as I call it, the Mario RPG Ramifications. Of all the things I've said, feel free to comment your opinions of the Mario RPG series, both of them, and their current predicament at the moment. Feel free to share your thoughts and your opinions and any ideas you've got and what you make of this current situation. I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to be able to discuss them with you. So feel free to comment. For now, though, I hope you enjoyed, and cheerio, everyone!